Good Wednesday afternoon. Brand new tropical storm developed as of the 11 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. This is an area we're watching for about a day now and showing some pretty good development and looking pretty healthy. So it's now named Irma with winds of 50 miles per hour. And it's going to strengthen rather quickly as it's moving into an area that's not really going to impede it from strengthening much further. By as early as Friday morning, it could be a Category 1 storm with winds of 80 miles an hour. And as it tracks off towards the west, that's when things can get a little bit tricky here. All right, this is going to be the computer models here. Each line you see there is a different running of a computer model. We call this a spaghetti plot for good reason. If it goes all over the place, it looks like bowl spaghetti. But you notice some deviation here from a general consensus early on, and then they start to split. Some go north, some go south. There is a reason for that, and that's because it's trying to gauge and pinpoint the location of an area of high pressure that we call a Bermuda high, that this time of the year, it's almost more important to pay attention to how strong and the positioning of this area rather than the storm itself. That's still pretty important too, but this is called a Cape Verde storm system that's developing, and that's based on the location where it originates, the Cape Verde Islands. And when the area of high pressure, the Bermuda high, is relatively weak, it'll steer it off towards the west like we're seeing now, but then eventually we'll see that hook off to the north and then northeast that we see, and we call that a fish storm because it doesn't usually affect any land masses. But if that area of high pressure is just a little bit stronger, it'll keep that westerly track for a little bit longer and then take that turn north and eventually northeastwards later on, and that puts a lot of the East Coast in jeopardy there, and fair game for some impact from the possibility of that system there. Now, if it's a very strong area of high pressure, it suppresses it even further to the south and keeps that westerly track longer, that it could make a run at Florida, through the Bahamas, or even up through Cuba, and maybe even make it into the Gulf of Mexico. So we're really going to have to watch that over the next couple of days, really talking 10 to 12 days out before it would have any sort of relevance to our forecast here, but certainly an issue out there right now with nothing to really slow it down. Something else really cool I want to show you. This is experimental, and it's called an analog track. What this does, and it's run by the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee. And what that does is it takes, a storm, Irma, where it is now, the positioning, the time of year, and the intensity, as well as its movement, and then looks at storms from the past, from 1950 all the way up to present. And it says, hey, did any storms, act like this? Let's see what they did in this similar situation, and gives us an analog track. So they give you about 10 separate storms. A couple of these did make it to major hurricane status, but you notice they all do that loop up to the north and off to the north and east, missing any major landmasses. The closest, very close call here with Earl. That was back in 2010, if you remember that. It became a major hurricane at that point, but certainly going to be something to watch. And this, again, is experimental. You can't really gauge the forecast off of it, but it gives you some sort of idea about what may happen. Also, I want to show you something here about landfalling September hurricanes. If you remember us talking about September hurricanes are usually around the peak of hurricane season. September 10th and 11th is that climatological peak over the last 30 years when conditions are right and we see the most occurrence of those tropical systems. Well, since 1987, so about 30 years, there's been 16 total landfalls. Now, I isolated it now to show just those landfalls that originated from the Cape Verde Islands. There were 8 that impacted the United States in some capacity here in varying intensity. So certainly going to be something to watch here. It's that time of the year that we start to see the tropics become a little more active. But the next update coming out later on this afternoon, of course, every 3 to 6 hours after that to see if there's any changes. No need to worry about anything now. 10 to 12 days out from now, we're looking at the weekend of September 9th onwards from there before it would have any sort of impact here. So that's the latest update for you. Hope you enjoy your afternoon.